אנחנו קוראים בכתבי בעל הסולם, הקדמה לספר.
We're reading from the writings of Baal HaSulam. You can find the article in Kabbalah for the student. This is on page 464. While you're watching the lesson, you can ask questions live on Kabbalah.info, and the relevant questions may be aired during the lesson. So again, from Kabbalah for the student, we're reading on page 464, a paragraph about in the middle of the page. Now you can understand what is written in the Tosfot. When one prays that Torah will enter one's body, one should pray that no delicacies will enter the body. This is because the form of self-reception, which is the opposite of Kedusha, increases and multiplies. We remember that there are four angels, four forces that the Creator created, or as if chose. It's like four phases of direct light, or Yud K Vav K, forces that design the Malchut, the will to receive, and by their mutual actions, the Malchut, the will to receive, can achieve perfection, can be like the light at the same status, degree. But even at the state where the Creator created that man, that will to receive, that is worthy of being like him, those angels couldn't see the things that allow a person to, the man, to reach the degree of the Creator. And that's because it's impossible from a state that is born, that are like Adam, to be an angel, meaning without free choice, without any vacant space, without deficit. Just like the angels don't have that desire, they're just forces of nature. So don't relate any personality to those angels. We're talking about forces of nature. By the forces of nature, the Creator created. Man could not reach being like him, meaning less than him. The will to receive couldn't reach such bestowal to be independent and like the Creator. This doesn't happen in a straight, direct way. But man has to be brought through, put through a shattering as he is created. In that shattering, the vessels of bestowal and reception mingle, and in their mixture, collision, and then clarification by the light that shines on them, gradually, by the whole process, those broken vessels come to a state where they can discern between themselves and the Creator. From that action of what is the point in life that they ask, they advance, and then there is a certain relation between them, between the qualities of reception and the qualities of bestowal. And therefore, if they discover this collision and draw the light that reforms in a way that they try to artificially be like the light, then it turns out that the force of the Creator, the general force of bestowal, we call it the light that reforms. It doesn't matter how you call it, there are just two forces eventually, bestowal and reception. So it works on those creatures exactly in the same area of the shattering. When they discover the place of the shattering, they find the difference between them and the giver. Not the difference between them towards the fulfillment or the desire, but towards the giver. It's as if the coefficient or a higher degree, and they only work towards being similar to that giver and pulling all the means, the conditions they have for that. Lights and vessels. So both the lights and the vessels are at man's disposal for the design of this creature, where the principle is the masach, the screen, the measure of equivalence, similarity to the Creator. And this is possible only by constructing the man through 4 angels and the whole system of the worlds that can take care of it after the shattering and correction in the world of Atzilut. So man is designed in a way that is like an animal, in any sense, without shame, without anything like that. No degree of man yet. Shame here doesn't mean, it means the difference between him and the Creator. That's called shame. This gap will only be after the shattering. As a result of the shattering, when the sparks of bestowal will permeate the vessels of reception and they will show the difference between them, it'll be felt. So then there will be a place, new desires on the degree of Adam, men, and they can be corrected. So again, as I said, it's also by unifying with the other broken parts and drawing the light that reforms, meaning starting to play with something better, starting to express the desire to grow. And accordingly, the preparation to grow awakens in him on the one hand, and he draws the light with this, receives that nourishment, that strength from above, and then all his broken reshimot, as he discovers the bad difference between him and the Creator, turning it into connection and similarity. This is what he wants to explain to us.
Thus, how can obtain the light of Torah within one's body when he is separated? He took the wrong place, meaning, even though if the angels of Chesed and Tzedakah will regret agreeing, because the opinion is that they have never agreed that the truth will be discontempt, etc. And that incident happened while he ate from the tree of knowledge, when truth was absent from the providence of the existence of reality. Because he felt and was weakened, the force of scrutiny, which is imprinted in man from the side of Yetzirah. The manners of his actions were through feeling of the bitter and sweet, as brought above. Because the abundance of existence, which are 248 different discernments, were already clear as sun in noontime, and they were connected in the system of sanctity, and the palate will taste food, to be completed in everything that is pleasant and sweet, and to reject everything that is bitter and bad for him, in a way that he won't fail in them again. However, after the first tasting from the tree of knowledge, due to which he adhered to them, the form of self-reception, and their body became opposite to sanctity, then the abundance of existence came to him, which are the 288 discernments. They came to the Sitra Achra. It turns out that the 288 sparks, which were already clear, returned and were confused in the hands of the Sitra Achra, and a new form of reality was born, which is the disparity of form, which its beginning is sweet and whose end is bitter.
This is what's most important. This is what we feel throughout our entire life. The more we try to be as if to attain the good, at the end we'll always feel bitter. And that is a very great form that necessitates us to find a solution to our vessels. And then, out of no choice, all kinds of methods develop to lessen the vessels, to restrict or minimize the vessels. But after all that development, we reach a state where it is no longer possible to hide from our vessels, that they only show us bitter in life that is difficult and worse than dying, than death. And the fact that humanity is nearing that decision is something natural that is rooted in the vessels to begin with, and there's no choice. We all have to reach that. But dissemination of the wisdom of Kabbalah helps us accelerate our development and understand faster what's happening.
This was because the form of the 298 has been changed by the Sitra Achra, where the light of pleasure brings separation and a bitter drop. This is the form of fleshhood, the first and foremost progenitor of every distraction and confusion.
So it turns out that what we feel as sweet and bitter, or emptiness after fulfillment, it's not that the sweet goes away or the fulfillment goes away. We begin rather to digest it differently. That's why in the same state we already feel bitter, empty. Say you bought a new car, right? Or something that you really wanted to for several years. Why don't I have the same excitement after a week? Why? What, the car is not good anymore and I already have to replace it after a week? What's bad? What's the problem? My vessels, meaning it's the same pleasure, the same kli. We only add to it an essential question. Why? What for? That's the problem, the corruption, that by the vacant space we begin to ask about the goal, the purpose, and this is what ruins my entire pleasure. It's not that the pleasures disappear, they simply lose their value. The fact is simple. I have the car, I use the car, but I lost the pleasure. Maybe I still don't have the power to make this more tangible, but what I'm trying to say is that nothing disappears, only a greater ego desire to receive is added to us. And it's more cunning, it's sharper. That's the serpent that is revealed. What do you need that? What for? What do you get by it? And so on. It's like it is said that Pharaoh brought the children of Israel closer to their Father in heaven by all those questions of what's it for, who is this, and so on. The component of the man, Adam, is added. What do you get from this? And that's how the pleasure disappears. So don't think that the pleasure disappears because time goes by. There is no time. It's all our feeling. It disappears because a spiritual component awakens, which is the man, Adam.
But that example with the car and the pleasure that disappears, it seems as if the pleasure disappears because you're getting used to it. It's not new anymore.
What do you mean by getting used to it?
I had a car. The new car came. After a week, I'm already used to it, so I'm not impressed from it anymore.
So explain, what do you mean by getting used to it? What is this phenomenon? I don't understand. In spirituality, what is it? There are lights and vessels. What does it mean to get used to something? If a pleasure is there, it should be there always. It's eternal. If it disappears, it disappears. This I understand. So, what changes? The changes are in the vessels. The car doesn't disappear, right? So why does the vessel disappear? Why does it become bigger? And the same pleasure doesn't fulfill it anymore. What becomes bigger in that? There is no size. It's all in quality. All the changes in spirituality are qualitative. So I'm saying that there is a change happening in the Kli. There are always changes in the Kli, always. I gave you an example with the car. The car stands outside your house, it's shiny and beautiful for a week, or even the day or 2 days after, it's not the same already. Why? Because from the serpent, the essence of its poison, you begin to awaken as a man, Adam. So you actually ask, what do I get from this? You don't, but this is the thing that awakens in you and ruins it for you. After everything, after the ruin, the sin of the tree of knowledge, after you receive any fulfillment, the point of contact with the Creator wakes up, which during the shattering permeated each and every desire and is now there forcefully. So every desire that gets fulfilled, that point awakens in it and says, well, what did you get? As if it's laughing at you, and you can't do anything about it. And that's how we advance throughout history. Otherwise we would not advance. That's the difference between man and an animal. I would otherwise only use my car and enjoy having it, and that's it. And then there are degrees, different levels and so on, but eventually that's it. The thing that always advances us throughout history, from when we lived in caves until today, is only the human component, that we have to advance towards being like the Creator. The Adam in us grows. And it stems from the sin of the tree of knowledge. Otherwise, those vessels, call them Adam and Eve, doesn't matter, they would stay as animals. The shame that mingled in them, well, what is the shame? The shame is towards the host, how much I'm opposite to him. It is that same question. What do you get from this? As if towards the host, I begin to see, what do I get from this car if what I need is to resemble the Creator? Of course I don't know. The question is really towards the Creator, but that's where the deficit comes from. Well, let's allow our guest, our friend, to ask from there.
With the example of the car, I remember the car. I remember the pleasure simply was gone. Why in a higher degree from Avraham to Moshe? Moshe has no recollection of Asiya, of Avraham?
No. You're asking about things that I can't go into now. Abraham, Moses, all of that. You're touring all the vessels. That's nice. Yes.
You mentioned Adam, the creation of man, several times. So Adam, man, is from resembling the apple one. This is a kind of attainment or a stage already.
No, we're talking about the creation named after the future. Adam, because it will be similar to the Creator. It's not Adam yet. Can you call an embryo or a fetus or a drop of semen? Can you call it a person? No, but what is the difference? Everything's there already. Wait a year and you'll see that it's a human being.
So when somebody is calling it, he's reading Adam, is it Adam or is it from a certain point onward?
I don't understand. Adam means the will to receive that takes on the form of similarity to the Creator. The measure of bestowal in a person is called Adam. Don't call yourself man, a human, Adam. I'm sorry to say that, but examine your desire and see whether you are a man or not. That's how we determine that. We're not talking about how it looks. That's it. If you stopped climbing the trees, then you are a man. You're even worse than that, right? Right, Amikam? Just don't confuse us now.
I just keep on thinking about at least two situations where the pleasure from the car doesn't disappear. For instance, if you have a new car.
I don't want to add here. You see, you are now trying to confuse us. I gave an example on something simple, without talking about what jealousy is, envy, and the society and all of that. You are smart, but you have no system. You have no method of how to approach the wisdom. If I gave you a certain example of how a person acquires a desire for godliness in a gradual way throughout history, by every time feeling bitter at the end. You want to say, no, there are states where he won't feel bitter. He will feel bitter. You're just adding another component that maybe by seeing the neighbor, he'll feel another thing as good. Do you hear the principle? There's no sweet without bitter at the end. Period. That's it. You can now make any excuses you want. But the thing is, you're getting confused, and you'll bring us to something aside. What for? The principle stays the same.
Can we say that the more advanced a person is, the pleasure is closer to him until the last cry that he makes, that he says that his pleasure is inappropriate?
You see that we are advancing towards a state where people have everything, and a person doesn't need to bother that much, and still there's dissatisfaction. The more we advance, it seems like there are greater fulfillments as opposed to fulfillments we had in the past. In the past, people would sit down and have, half a kilo of bread a day, and that's it. Some water from some source. That's it. What do you need more? What? Today, how much do you need for each one? And are we satisfied? No. Why? Everyone is asking. Because the satisfaction is not in the human level. You can try adding more and more mobile phones and games and tricks and whatever. Our technologies today can confuse you and do whatever you want, but it won't give you anything. This is soon over. It will soon be over because the deficit, we are confusing ourselves. We want to confuse ourselves. We want to drug ourselves that way, intoxicate ourselves by all kinds of things. But the deficit comes from the inequivalence to the Creator. So that's why you cannot fulfill it with anything. In the meantime, you're confusing yourself, looking at others and so on. There are many stoppers here, as if we're trying to cover or paint over that deficit, but it is there, ripening inside, until it reaches a certain extent, and then it bursts, it erupts, and humanity reaches the discernment that nothing else will help. I have to fill it, because besides that, I'm better off dead. Because the deficit will not find a fulfillment in this world. It's a deficit from recognition of godliness.
But why are we confusing ourselves?
It's our protective force. It helps us protect ourselves. I start using drugs or alcohol or, I don't know, trips in all kinds of places. I look at others, and we all want to confuse each other. It's a protective force of our egoism that wants to prove to itself that it can be fulfilled. Trying to cover for that deficit that can't be felt. What for? It says the person does not crave the daughter of the king. What we can't attain, we don't crave. What? So from the dawn to dusk, I'll always be sad that I'm not a billionaire? Why? It will just make my life bitter, and will it help me become one? No. So my will to receive limits me, and it doesn't let me suffer. And here, we can't. We confuse ourselves in the meantime at the beastly level. To confuse ourselves, not to feel the deficit on the human level. But it won't help. It won't help. It is added and added and added until it bursts. In some periods of time in history, it happened as a revolution or as some sort of a tragic or dramatic situation. Let's hope that the solution this time will be softer, because we have to rise from one degree to another. It's a big problem. Humanity will start getting crazy from helplessness. You understand, it's not the same degree we had in previous civilizations, where we rose to new degrees by revolutions or wars, or a new order of something. Religion, for instance, was a major change. All those major times of discovery in science still gave a solution, or the publishing of the books, or the invention of the steaming machines, and so on. So that was like a solution for fulfillment. But now it cannot be the same types of solutions, because the deficit is different. Our desire is only to discover our king, it is called. This is how it is. It wakes up and... Yes.
From all the people who feel this deficit, there are those who feel it perhaps a little bit more conspicuous. But still, it is hidden from them. It's still not conspicuous yet. And those people are watching our channel, usually to their masses, watching it every once in a while. Now, how can we address them and tell them, one, to stop denying that desire which overcomes them? Not to hide that desire, to make it more obvious and to give it a response. What can we tell them?
Learn it from yourself. How you do it instinctively. How the body does it automatically. How it hides the problems. Look at how you keep yourself. No person keeps himself that way. So how can you demand it from them? How can you turn to them in any way? Guys, stop. You have to suffer more. This is what you're saying, in other words. If you'll suffer more, the suffering will bring you to a solution. How much you'll have to suffer? Well, a few years. That's it. That's what you'll tell them. This is called connecting to good on channel 66. Of course, it's not a solution. Instead, you have to let the light work. Let the light work. That's what you have to do. To unite you have the Torah, meaning the light that reforms. Why do you need to give them deficit? Prepare the remedy first. And from the remedy, you'll show the deficit. The remedy itself, the light, will show the deficit to the extent that each and every one is ready. And the light can immediately cure him. You intend to open the wound on your own and touch it and open it? Who allowed you to do that? You're doing that from love to the created beings? God forbid. No, only light you have to give them. Nothing but that. By that, you as if assist the Creator as His representative in this world, bringing Him closer to people. Only that way. What, you'll start waving your finger, pointing at others and teaching them morals or punishing them or tell them that they're hiding the evil or something like that? And what can you give them instead? Don't put an obstacle in front of a blind man. How can you give them something bad? Will you do the same with your kids? This isn't the approach of Kabbalah at all. God forbid. If you have the option to help humanity avoid something evil, even just 1 gram of it, you have to do it. How else if our principle is thou love thy friend as thyself? So how do you think about showing the wound even for just a second? No. You can't do it. Only by the light. Look how many places he writes about it. Only the light that reforms, so on and so forth. And that despair also comes from the light because it has to be directed. It's not like I'm just generally despaired. Why are you despaired? Towards what purpose? What is the solution you're looking for? So you can tell them that it's going to be worse and we should hurry up, but not in a way that you scare them. But it's a part of an explanatory process. You're showing where things go. You see how nature works. There's a direction towards here and there are greater and greater problems or disturbances in our life, and so on and so forth. You show this to them scientifically. That's a different thing, but it's not like you're saying suffer. You don't want them to suffer. You open the picture and tell them we should already create some safety net so we don't suffer. That is from your concern. This is understood. Just treat everyone like your children. Then you don't need any explanation. Why do I always give these examples? Because this is something we understand naturally.
So what does it mean to give only the light?
To advertise the wisdom of Kabbalah. You're going tomorrow to hand out our newspaper. Good, think about that. You have no other solution. Only to publicize the wisdom. If you're talking about how to avoid evil, only by disseminating the wisdom of Kabbalah. You have nothing but that. As simple as that. Just erase whatever you do or whatever humanity does. Only dissemination. That's it. Should we continue or what? So, what do I want to say? I wanted to say that the sin of Adam Arishon is something necessary and desired. The angels didn't agree to create Adam at first, even as an angel, meaning at the degree of angels, being integrated with these 4 forces, these 4 angels, and also not being able to exist that way. The truth, the measure of truth, cannot be there. Why? Because inside him there's an inner point unlike the angels are forces working in the worlds. In this external form of the first 9 sefirot of the expansion of the light in the vessels. This is called angels. And man is born from the point of Malchut. There's a point there which is opposite. Opposite from those angels, those first 9 sefirot, and it's empty, that Malchut. There's a restriction over it. Cannot receive anything. That's why the angels didn't agree to it. So then it turns out that as a result they don't agree on the one hand. On the other hand, they say there's no choice, we'll create him, but we are not taking him into account. We put him down and the truth will grow from within the land. And after a person goes through the sin, the first 9 sefirot necessarily mingle with him. And then, by the common feeling between the Malchut and the first 9 sefirot, when two things permeate each other through an explosion, through a pressure that is above nature, when the resistance between them is broken, shattered, then, at first, there's a masach that separates these two parts, the will to receive and the will to bestow. That masach is broken, the will to receive and the will to bestow permeate each other, and then Adam, named after his future, begins to be closer to becoming Adam because he begins to have a desire for bestowal. He doesn't know why, what for, why do I need it, but it's in me, I have nothing to do. That's a result of the breaking of the vessels, or the sin of the tree of knowledge. This is something very big. The serpent is the angel of death, although it's really the angel of life. Only to the extent that I'm not corrected, it's the angel of death. And what it really puts to death is my ego. Well,
about the angels, Willie from Bet Kabbalah in Haifa asks, how can we ascribe conception, regret and disgrace to angels?
No, we're talking about human feelings, but we treat it as nature. That's nature.
What changed that all of a sudden that they agree?
The angels didn't agree to create the man even as a beast, because in the man, look, the animals, or still vegetative and animate, are the first 9 sefirot, the 3 phases of direct light. The 4th phase is Malchut. It is the future degree of man, his future state. They didn't agree with the 4th phase because the 4th phase is opposite, cannot receive light into it. There was a tzimtzum, a restriction. So they say, in other words, that Bchina Daled cannot be turned into Adam, a man. What can we do? The 3 phases, yes, we can manage between ourselves all the will to receive within us takes place, and it's true, the still vegetative and animate are harmoniously governed by nature. So what about Adam? Take the measure of truth out of the game, then you can work with man. Well, later. Yes, Pops, Grandpa.
We're talking about, in the article of the Rabash, about sons running around in her. What we said before is that a person who comes to a question of what is the meaning of life, even if he is not on the path, can we make the comparison to the article?
Yes, of course, but it's still unconscious. even in our previous history, everything comes from the same racketing, because the degree of our development is on the human level. The beasts don't feel that development. You see, man does develop and feels it, and its development stems from the purpose it has to reach. That's it. This is why all the reckoning or the struggling is between Esav and Yaakov, but eventually they complement each other. Okay? We'll continue, or yes?
There's another question. Binya from Russia is asking, he who advances towards spirituality, does he develop in the same way also? Meaning the same feeling of losing the pleasure, but from spiritual pleasure, or is this something else?
Losing the pleasures in the regular world, in the regular life, bring a person to the question of what is the point in life? What is the point in my life? And then he reaches the wisdom of Kabbalah. In the wisdom of Kabbalah, he begins to develop. Usually, he doesn't have the regular question of what is the point in life, because the desire that unfolds is already different. If we're talking about a person who truly wants to advance to spirituality, then he tries through the books and the group especially, he tries that even if demands for his corporeal life awaken, he knows that he only needs to structure his life in a beastly way, meaning exactly as nature requires. This is what I need to do, otherwise I also won't be harmonious with nature. So why do we demand people who study to work, to get married, to have children, to do all those things? They have to complete their beastly degree, otherwise they don't start their human degree. Look what Baal Sulam did. Until Rabash, my teacher, his elder son, didn't get married, he didn't let him study, didn't let him go into a lesson. How could it be? You heard what how it worked then. Only we broke that rule because we don't want to push people away from Kabbalah. You have to complete the beastly degree. You don't work, go to work. But maybe you have money, so what? No one asks if you have money or not. You're not working for that. You're working to be harmonious with nature. I don't want to get married. I don't even need a wife. What for? No one asks if you need it or not. You have to be harmonious with nature. That's it. And so on and so forth. You have to carry out all those degrees, still vegetative and animate, to complete them. And then you'll continue the speaking degree to such an extent that I'm telling you that Kabbalists didn't take students before they have completed these degrees of still vegetative and animate. That's it. This is what you asked about?
He's asking beyond. The moment I already started feeling in spirituality and enjoy a certain degree in spirituality, isn't it enough, and this is why I need more?
Of course, there could be many obstacles, but a person should tie himself to the study and his family and the children and everything to support it. It's very important. Very important. By the way, children who start being along with you in the same system, you become ashamed towards them. It helps you to keep yourself on track. There are many supporters that a person should prepare for himself. Otherwise, he is simply wasting a lot of time on these outside struggles and will always be receiving obstacles in many sides, from money, knowledge, and honor, and all kinds of things. Anything. And it's all because of the lack of strengthening in the right environment. And that's all. It's not that he needs to try to directly overcome those disturbances. God forbid. No. If I have any disturbance, I don't need to fight it. I need to fight being closer to the group, more connected to the group. Not there in that place directly. It's like you asked before about all the other things. How do we aim ourselves? Only by the light that reforms. That's what I said. And the same thing here. Only escape towards the group. If I have a desire all of a sudden for this, for that, I only go to the group. That's it. I don't know anything. That's my safety, my hiding place.
So if I understand you correctly, the principle is different. It's not that I feel spiritual pleasure, it's gone, and then I want more. Rather, I feel a spiritual pleasure, and then I fall into some interferences, and then...
Well, yes and no. Doesn't matter.
You said before that a person with money for his livelihood and he doesn't go to work, well, he's not in harmony with nature.
Yes, I had the same example. When I came to Rabash, I said, I have money for a few years, I don't need to work. I had a good business, work in business, I closed it. And he told me, who said you need to work for money? You need to work at least, let's say, 5 hours a day.
What does it have to do with being in harmonious with nature?
Because a person has to put in some investment, some effort, and produce an outcome in this world. Let's say I won the lottery, 10 million shekels. I don't know. This is an example. I don't owe it to anyone. I don't, I made it. I can sit here from dawn to dusk and study and help, and no, you have to work. Our world is built that way. Our law of balance with nature is built in such a way that here I have to work. I'm telling you, the fact is simple. Just learn from the example first. The philosophy is later. I was next to the Rabash, and I worked every day. It wasn't 5 hours, it was like from 1 to 5 eventually, 4 hours. Because at 5 he already started his lesson. And then until 1 a.m. or 12 or midnight, 12:30, I was with him. Then I would come after our work, after where we walked, or I would come to my work right away, and then after that I would start working, and the studies would start at 5 to 8:30. So he obligated me to work. It doesn't matter whether you have money or not. Besides the fact that you, of course, have to provide for your family and so on. This is already a different story. Of course. Yes, Mushi?
About the interferences, you said that if there's an interference, then you have to turn to the society, ask for a connection, unity, and so on. But still, we learn that we have to take care of these interferences. So why is it enough to turn to the society? Rather, we should go to a doctor, etc.
We're not yet in the degree where we can solve all the problems through the connection with the group only. But in truth, it is that way. You're right. It's a correct question or a correct claim. If so, then why, by the light that reforms, when we go to the group, when we form a strong desire and we want it to happen, doesn't it happen? It doesn't happen directly. It doesn't. I gave you an example before. I have many examples about it, but in the meantime I can't talk about them. But I gave you once an example that I had a very major ulcer attack, and Rabash forced me to keep sitting and studying next to him. I couldn't bear it. In that moment, I was in a state where I couldn't overcome it. I couldn't draw the force that will calm down the pain, that will ease the pain. But undoubtedly, if I were able, then together with him, to sit and study, to draw the light that reforms right away, that was just my weakness. When he said, let's do it, it's a sign that I was able to do it. At that moment, I couldn't. There are better examples.
Meaning even without remedies, medicines?
What medicine? Of course. What medicine? Medicines are on the beastly level, on the corporeal level. It's also light, really, but let's leave it. But here we're talking about the direct thing, corresponding to the desire that feels lack of fulfillment. You brings fulfillment, and you don't just bring fulfillment, you correct it. That's the benefit. You correct the desire. You don't just put it asleep. Put it, calm it down. Well, let's say, kind of finish this introduction to Panim Me'orot U'Masbirot. We won't be able to dig deeper into it for now. We somehow went through it. There is an addition. We made a progress. We'll have to go over it again, say about in 6 months, and try to look deeper into it. It's a very profound introduction, and let's hope we'll be able to really uncover it. In the meantime,
before we conclude, a few messages. We invite you for a festive meeting with Rav Leitman in Hadera. It will be next Sunday, September 5th from 7:30 p.m. in Kabbalah.info Center in Hadera. It will be broadcasted and translated at Kabbalah.info. Details at 1-700-509-209. Activist dissemination convention will take place today at 6:30 p.m. in Beit Kabbalah La'am Petach Tikva. We will make a special drink for the new year. We will discuss the purposes of the organizations, special workshops, and we will start building our spiritual future together. Admission is free. Please register in advance at 1-700-509-209. The Heart Understands an open day in the Kabbalah La'am College. Kabbalah La'am College invites you for an open day about the wisdom of Kabbalah. It will take place on Monday, September 20th at 6:30 p.m. in the branches of Kabbalah La'am colleges all over Israel. Entrance is free. It is recommended to bring your friends. A clip of the event. Well, first I heard lectures in the internet, and it was very hard for me to understand. We feel that there's something here, but we can't always understand. I decided to come and learn more terms so that it will be clearer to me and easier to me, and it worked. Kabbalah La'am College invites you to make an order in your heart and mind. When I started studying, I felt that something is missing, that everything is theoretical. Ever since I found this, there is order, there is logic to things in my mind and emotion. The Heart Understands an open day in Kabbalah La'am College. As I was sitting in the lesson with an open mouth, the one who sat next to me had to close it down for me. Monday, September 20th, 6:30 in Kabbalah La'am centers all over Israel. Admission is free. Invite your friends over. Details at 1-700-509-209 or at kab.coil. It spoke to me. Come and try and see for yourself. Thank you and have a lovely day.
כולנו שואלים את השאלה של מה הטעם בחיים. רק אם נתאחד נצא מהסתרה. עכשיו אנו אומרים נעשה וגם נשמע. רק אם נתאחד נצא מהסתרה. עכשיו אנו אומרים נעשה וגם נשמע. תן לנו את הכוח ורצון להתחבר, על הכל ביחד נתגבר. נטפס על הסולם, אנחנו לא נוותר. תן לנשמה להתעורר. השיטה לפוצץ את המחיצה, נקבל ערבות, נחזק את הקבוצה. עכשיו אנו אומרים, נעשה וגם נשמע, נקבל ערבות, נחזק את הקבוצה. עכשיו אנו אומרים, נעשה וגם נשמע,